Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are starting our month of, I don't know, the Golden Age Gems or something. I don't know what we'll call them.
I didn't know what. Yeah, we didn't have like an official name. I was like, oldies but goodies.
Yeah, old-timey comics, we'll say. Which, you know, we were... I remembered fondly some of the comic book movies that came out in the early 90s, like The Phantom and The Rocketeer and The Shadow. And I was like, we should do comics based on those. So, and I know that The Rocketeer is not a old-timey comic technically, but it has that feel. So we will, you know, that's in there. It's in there anyway, because we want it to be, because we like The Rocketeer. So, but yeah, so the first one we're going to do for this month is Dick Tracy. The new one from, I think it's Mad Cave Comics. They're putting it out. This was incredibly solid for a modern day comic. And I was like, Dick Tracy, I mean, you know. I was very like satisfied with this. The only thing, and we'll talk about it when we get in there, I wanted a little bit more of the hyperbole in the character designs. You know what I mean? Like Flat Top's supposed to literally look like a shovel hit the top of his head and it's flat. Or like Prune Face looked more like a prune in the old days. And in this, they tried to like make it like it was real or something, you know?
Yeah, it's like taking it and making it like Christopher Nolan verse, like very like there's a reason like that it's like that, like he's prune face now, and there's a reason that he's flat top, and like he kind of has that look, but not. Yeah, it's not like because yeah, I've seen a lot of the old panels, and then obviously like when Warren Beatty did his movie, like very yeah.
Oh, Warren Beatty did it like straight as it was in the comic, like, and that's why they look so weird, you know.
Warren, yeah. His movie is probably one of the most comic accurate movies of comic book movies of all time. As
far as character design, I think the story's pretty boring, but like the story boring compared to normal Dick Tracy, but the character design is spot on. But I haven't seen that movie for a long time, so maybe I'm wrong. When was the last time you saw it, John?
I'm trying to remember. I feel like we did watch it not like several years back, but
a while. Also, I think it was at least 6 years back. That was the last time I watched it too, and that's when I thought it was kind of boring. And I think that's kind of what happened. Go.
I just say I don't remember loving it. I remember being like, oh, he's a cool looking character as a kid, but not like loving the movie. And then like it's like, oh yeah, we were. I remember, you know, we went back with movie night, like trying different things, and like, oh yeah, let's watch some of these old '90s heroes. And yeah, I remember being like, oh yeah, it's cool. And again, yeah, it looked really good, but yeah, I don't remember it like sticking out like, I can't wait to rewatch that movie.
Yeah. I think a lot of those old timey movies that were made by fans of the material missed the mark on like how to make it fun for modern audiences of the 90s. So like they were just like, let's like do the aesthetics correct, and that will like facilitate a good movie. But like I think the Phantom pretty much nailed it as far as looks, and you know, The Shadow also another one that's like looks wise, you know, Baldwin looks a lot like The Shadow, but it is dog shit as far as the movie's concerned, like story wise. I think they forgot about the story having to be really good too. So, yeah, and you know, one of the only things I remember, because that movie came out, like Dick Tracy came out when I was 6, I believe, around there. And I was like, I just remember seeing the commercials and being like, Madonna is fucking hot. Because she's like, you know, it's like Jessica Rabbit or something, right? Like that was all kind of at the same time, the like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jessica, or like not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but the Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah, I got that confused because there's that cartoon at the beginning of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Yeah, anyway. Am I off on that? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that movie too.
Yeah, it has been too long. I loved that. That was actually the first movie I ever saw in theaters, John. My parents took me to it when I was 3. And I apparently I don't remember, but apparently I was like, they were like, Matt's going to be terrible in this movie. We're going to have to leave, but we just need, like, maybe he'll shut up. The theater was the original iPad, like you just give it to a kid and hopefully they'd be quiet. Yeah. And so my parents went to take me to that movie and they thought Matt's going to be terrible. And apparently the second the movie started, I was just like in awe of the screen the whole time. So, which checks. I think that checks for me. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, the Roger Rabbit movie with, like, Jessica Rabbit is very, like, okay, that came out when I was, like, a little kid, and it was like, obviously this is having an effect on me. In the same way that, like, Madonna did in the Dick Tracy movie, because it looked like it was for kids, because the villains were all cartoony, and there was a kid in it. And I think was it PG?
I'm pretty sure it's PG, yeah.
Okay, it's PG. Or around, yeah, no way it's PG-13. It had to be PG. So, yeah, like, but it was 90s PG or late 80s PG, it was a little bit more racy. Same with, like, The Rocketeer. Jennifer Connelly in that movie. God damn. Did something to me. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's something there's something about the, like, I guess that old-timey, like, bombshell look to it that isn't, like, as considered.
The aesthetic of it, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what it is? It's because it's old-timey aesthetic that they're like, that's okay.
Well, I think, because all the women are in, like, garters and, these the clothes that we don't wear anymore and stuff. So it was all like, what the fuck is that? Like, they were wearing, like, crazy 50s clothes for, like, hot dames and stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, it was alluring as a young boy child. Yeah. Besides the action
just fine for me. I watched the same movie, and Jessica Rabbit had a booby trap, and I was like, "Ha, that's funny." Yeah,
and I was like, I also laughed, but then was like, I strangely want to be stuck in that booby trap. I'm not sure why. But anyway, so yeah, like that's pretty much the only thing about Dick Tracy I know is from the movie, and then, like, I really, really wanted to get and start reading the actual, like, Dick Tracy. They had the Sundays and they also had the dailies that they released in hardcover. And those went out of print. Like, they were already out of print when I realized, hey, maybe that'd be fun to read. So I think I'd have to go, like, find the digital versions on Hoopla or something to read. But I am interested because I heard, like, it's a single story from 1930 or whenever it started. So whenever it might even still be going somewhere in a strip. I can't remember. Yeah, it continued forever. Like Max Allan Collins, who did, like, Mr. Tree and stuff, he wrote it for a while, the strip, in the 80s, I think, or 90s. Yeah, so, like, it just continued. It's one continuous story. And like I said, it still might be going. I'm not sure if it is or not.
It is. I just double checked it. Yeah, okay. It's still running.
Okay, so there you go.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I'm like, that's pretty fucking awesome. I think it beats Batman or something. like if you think, like, the old numbering for Batman that went to like I think the one, the Detective Comics title is, like, and Detective and Action are both in the thousands of numbering. So that would make sense around there somewhere. I think they started in 39 and 40. So I don't know when Dick Tracy started, but.
You just had me. I had to go look. It is. So Detective Comics is still the first. It is the longest because it's 1937.
Okay. Well, yes, Detective Comics proper, but the Batman issue that came out was in, like, 39. Like, the first Batman issue of it was in 39. Because before it was just, like, Detective Comics, literally, like, each issue is a different detective story. And then Batman was the character that headed off in it. So, and then all the issues were Batman after that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you mean like a single character? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah. So either way, Dick Tracy is an old thing and it's still going. So I heard like he has like space adventures and shit though. Like, you know, when it's going that long, you just got to throw shit at the wall every now and then and see what happens. Get some zany antics.
That would be interesting to see this type of flair, but then like an alien invasion or something.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it's an alien. I don't know. I heard he goes to space.
Like he actually goes to space.
I think so. I might be wrong. Maybe they meant like aliens come and that's, you know, they just short for alien, or Dick Tracy goes to space. But yeah. Anyway. So yeah, Chester Gould was the original creator of Dick Tracy, and he wrote it until he died. I think he's dead. There's no way he's still alive.
No, it said he wrote it until like 1977.
Oh, okay. There you go. I think he was still alive then, so I guess he passed it on to, you know, Max Allan Collins or whoever after that. And then I don't know when he died. Did he die in 77 or did he just stop writing it in 77?
I think he just stopped writing it.
Okay. I feel like he came back on after a certain point too. I heard that he was in and out of it maybe after that. So I could be wrong though. Like I said, this is all from memory of what I've heard, you know, through the grapevine. So
he did come back a little bit. He incorporated with different writers and like helped with things still. But yeah, he died in 85.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, but this new series by Mad Cave is written by Alex Segura and Michael Morrissey, and the artist is Geraldo Borges. It is fantastic looking. I loved the art in this book. I thought it was really, really cool. I think it's probably digital. I could be wrong, but it's probably digital art. But if it's not, like he's doing a lot of like the old timey stuff, like the dot matrices for shadows and stuff. And I really, really liked that. But yeah, did you notice any of that art, or like, did you like the art?
Very much so. Yeah. I love all of any panel that had, like rain in it, or you know, any kind of like the noir feel that you kind of get with a detective comic was awesome. It was really fun in this, and then all the action sequences were great. All of the bullets and the gunfights and all of the like people coming out of shadows in this is very, very cool. I loved it a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, when Dick Tracy is in panel, he is fucking yellow as fuck. Like, he stands out on every page because of his outfit, which is great. I mean, he should. And then like, it is very violent. Like the when the violence happens, they do not pull any punches, which is nice.
No, I mean, it's literally starts out crazy violent.
Yeah, and like, we'll just start it out then. Like, it starts off, it's 1947, so this takes place like in the 40s. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be in continuity or not, like with the actual like dailies or, you know, stuff that was going on. But yeah, we see these two guys sitting at a diner. What's it called? The Jade Snake or something like that? The green.
I think so. They're the
green Cobra or something.
The green
like
eye.
The green eye. There you go. So it's a green eye diner. We see two guys that look kind of out of place because they're both wearing suits and stuff. And they look kind of nervous. They're at the bar. They, you know, a shadow walks by behind them and they're like, oh, and they look behind themselves. But we get like a close up of them talking, and we see like one of them is the city alderman with a guilty conscience. His name is Emil Trueheart. And the other one is the ambitious city Tribune crime reporter, Langdon Marsh. And apparently Trueheart has called this meeting with Marsh to be like, hey, I got some dirt on what's going on in the city. There's like a whole conspiracy happening. I got to tell you before I get killed, like someone's after me basically, because I know too much. And right as he says that, he like, a shadow comes behind him. He looks, he's like, oh God. And then he gets shot in the head. And then someone comes in with Tommy guns and starts blowing him and everybody else in the diner away. Him and Trueheart. Yeah.
They just mow down the diner.
Yeah, so they just kill Marsh and Trueheart. Just they're the targets, obviously, but everybody else is getting it in the diner as well. No one's getting off with with like just a shot in the shoulder or whatever. Everybody's getting murdered. So That's how the comic starts. And that is definitely a good way to start a comic. Like, whoa, violent crime right away. Tommy guns. Hell yeah. Then we see like the next, at dawn, because that was at like, what was that, middle of the nights, you know, it's a 24-hour diner. It doesn't say what time it is, but I guess, you know, we'll assume it's like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something.
2 a.m.
Oh, it's 2 a.m. Okay. So yeah, then in the morning at dawn, you know, cops are there. We cut to them like, what the hell happened? And then, you know, someone walks in and says like, I'll take it from here. And they're like, Dick Tracy. And we get this great, you know, page splash of Dick Tracy in his yellow coat and hat. Now, I totally forgot like everything about Dick Tracy other than like, yeah, I keep, because I read a lot of like crime stuff from the 50s with a lot of PIs. And so I was like, is he a PI or is he a cop? But he is a cop in this. I mean, I think in the, you know, the comic, traditionally, he is a police officer that just wears, he doesn't play by the station's rules, you know, he's an outlier. He wears yellow and is a plainclothes detective. So, yeah, but he's got his, you know, his watch, his classic watch, although he didn't use it too much. Not that I remember in this. It's like a 2-way radio watch. And I think in the, you know, 40s and 30s, that was fucking awesome. Now it's just kind of like, yeah, it's an
yeah,
iPhone.
Everybody has one.
Yeah, everybody has one of those on their wrist. It's called a fucking Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch or whatever. So, yeah, he was just ahead of his time. But so he starts looking around, and the thing was like, I'm like, is this even his like collar or like? I feel like he's the kind of detective who just shows up at murder scenes, whether they're his or not, and is like, what's going on here? I think this looks like a job for Dick Tracy, and like calls himself Dick Tracy in the third person.
I'm just gonna take over this investigation. Excuse me.
Yeah, excuse Dick Tracy. He needs to look at this evidence.
Dick Tracy coming through.
Exactly. Now I kind of want that to be what this was. That was not what this was. But yeah. Anyway, so Dick Tracy's looking around, and he hears something outside, and you know, it turns out that Trueheart's father, or Trueheart, has a daughter, and she works at the paper, right? She's like a journalist. And so she's like, what the hell happened? And then she finds out Marsh and her dad were killed here. And, you know, it's a whole thing. She's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this since apparently you fucking cops won't. And it seems like she doesn't really like Dick Tracy to start with either. But Dick Tracy's like, I like the cut of her jib. You can tell he's kind of smitten with her tenacity. I will say there's not really too much romance or anything in this specific 5-issue series we read here, or volume, but it does continue, and there was a Valentine's Day issue this month that I didn't read, but maybe there's something later on with them. Who knows?
Nice. I was curious if there was, because yeah, like Matt said, like, you know, you go down the classic noir. You expect like a little bit of like, you know, it was a stormy night and she came in the door, or, you know, her legs went up to her neck, and she was a tall drink of water, and
yeah, she had jams for days.
Yeah. And there wasn't much of that. She was, which I mean is good. You know, she was also a very strong female character as well.
She could be both, John. They could have that dialogue, and she could still be like, fuck you guys, I'm my own woman, or whatever, you know? That's how I would write it. Like a lot of the times they try to like make it too like, I don't need you, but like the men also are like on her side, and I'm like, they should have the men be like they were, and then her be strong, you know, like her be like, fuck you or whatever, you know, like, because that makes it better. I feel, instead of like having if Dick Tracy was like, you're right, I am a chauvinist or whatever, you know, like it's like, no, and they don't do that in this, luckily, but it is like, no one says anything either way about her attitude other than I like her spunk kind of thing. That's the vibe you get, is like she's like she's a strong filly or whatever like that. Like
She's a real go-getter.
Yeah, that's the attitude you get. No one's like she should stay in her place or anything. So, which I mean, I would say some people might say that, you know, later on or something, but we didn't get any of that in this issue or this volume. So, but anyway, so we get introduced to her. We find out like that's his daughter, the guy that was murdered's daughter, and she is on a vendetta now to figure out what happened to her father. And then Tracy goes to his chief's house in the morning, gets some breakfast. I'm like, Chief is just like in his regular, like, you know, wife beater shirt or whatever, you know, chilling, cooking eggs for him and Tracy. I'm like, do they do this often? Or if I was him, I'd be like, why the fuck are you at my house right now?
Yeah. There's separation of personal life and work life, Dick.
Yeah. Yeah. He just calls him Dick all the time. Yeah. So, but basically he's like, something doesn't smell right with this chief, and Chief is like, nah, it's probably just a robbery. And you should just let it go. It's not worth your time. You're a homicide. You're like, you know, a different breed. You should leave it to the robbery guys. And Dick's like, nah, this smells like something else to me. So
it smells like burnt leather.
Yeah, exactly. So then we cut to, what's her first name?
Tess.
Okay. So Tess, who is the daughter of Trueheart. So Tess Trueheart is her name. We'll call her Tess. We cut to her. Is it daytime or is it nighttime? I feel like it's nighttime.
Or maybe it's going into the evening.
Yeah, because I think the street light's on outside. But either way, she's in her dad's office looking for something because she's like, Dad, why were you at this diner? It's kind of shady. Like, why would someone murder you? What were you into? And she's looking for evidence in his desk, and she sees like she sees a journal. She looks in it and it says meet Marsh to get mumbles. And so she's like, okay, that's why he was at that diner, to meet with Marsh to get mumbles. What's a mumble? And then, you know, this was a hint, you know, if you were a fan of the comics, you might remember the old comics. You might remember there was a character named Mumbles, or you could assume that. Like I didn't know, but I was like, I'm sure there was a character named Mumbles in the old Dick Tracy stuff. So, and true to his name, you cannot understand a goddamn word he says in this fucking thing. I thought maybe they would like make it so you could read it if you like figured out the cadence or something, but I couldn't figure it out personally. Only like a couple words. I was like, okay, he said that, I think. But even with that, I couldn't decipher. But either way, as she's breaking in and finds this stuff, two goons come in and they're arguing at first, and then they come in and like just walk in on her, and she's like, oh, hi, I'm the secretary. I was just tidying things before the police get here or whatever. And they're like, yeah, you ain't leaving yet. And then they try to stop her, but she has a letter opener and she stabs one of them with it and then runs out. And she ends up, or she gets in a cab and she says, take me to Dick Tracy. So she took the book with her. So then we cut to her and Dick Tracy talking in his car, and she's like, something's weird. We got to talk to someone named Mumbles, or this thing called Mumbles. And Dick's like, oh, I know who that is. So they go to Mumbles' house and they capture him. And as they're bringing him out, a car pulls up and someone says, hey, you Mumbles. And then they open their door, and I kind of wish this was like a suicide door car. That would have been cool. It was not. But that's what I think of when I think of Tommy gun and like shooting from a car, is like those suicide doors, you know? It's a regular door, but it is like an old-timey like Oldsmobile or something car, or Studebaker or something. And the guy opens it up, and this is Flat Top, we find out later. They call him Flat Top because his hair is parted in the center and it looks like someone like ironed it down, basically. So it's flat. In the original comic, it looks like someone hit him on the head with a shovel and his head literally deformed to be like, to look like a U almost, you know, like a filled in U.
Yeah. You could set down a drink on it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, he starts firing his Tommy gun. He misses completely. I'm like, how'd you do that? They were right in front of you. But Dick Tracy's fast. He's like, we can get down. And he pushes them in front of the car, in front of a different car so that they can dodge the bullets. And then people drive away. And so, or the guy drives away, Flat Top drives away. I guess Dick Tracy shoots a fire hydrant and then like shoots water at Mumbles before he can jump out. But yeah, so Dick Tracy jumps in his car with Tess and Mumbles and they drive away. And then we cut to the dock where Flat Top is apologizing for failure. He's like, I'm sorry, you don't know. It was that detective, Dick Tracy. Now, did you get the feeling that this was like early on in Dick Tracy's career where like these people didn't quite know who he was? Because Mumbles says like he goes by the name of Tracy, Dick Tracy.
Yeah, it seemed like maybe this is like him just kind of getting a name for himself.
Yeah, like I was like, okay, I guess this might be before he's really done anything. But he's talking to, of course, like the big head guy who ordered this murder of Mumbles and possibly Tess's father and Marsh. And we don't know his name yet, but we see him in all his glory at the end on the last page of this issue, of the first issue. And he says, find this Dick Tracy, find him and cut him down. So, you know. Good. I could totally, like, that's how I heard it in my head. It was very well written and like it reminded me of Alec Baldwin in like Glenn Ross when he's like, put the coffee down. Coffee's for closers. Like that's exactly how I read it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it really like captured the vibe of the comic. A lot of the writing I was like, definitely, it doesn't feel old and it doesn't feel fake. It just feels like, yeah, this is solid, like a solid way to write this kind of old timiness, you know? I don't know about you, but I've read some like, you know, newer comics that are trying to do older characters and they just don't work because they like say wrong words and stuff. They use wrong slang and whatnot. And I feel like they did a really good job of not doing that in this. They did their research, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. It felt very in world. Nothing fell out of place.
Yeah. So then we start issue 2 and we get a new guy and a guy named Pat Patton. Great comic book name. To the alliteration, and it's the same name twice, basically. Pat Patton. But
what are you trying to say?
You know, just hey, they had, you know, Bruce Banner. You know, it's all Reed Richards. It was something they used to do back in the day. But anyway, so Pat Patton is going to this dock where these homes are being built, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for work." You know, he goes to talk to the foreman, who I guess is the foreman. He looks like he's the only guy that's not working here because he's got a purple suit on. He's the overseer. He's the manager, we'll say. He's doing a lot of managing, not a lot of working. So he talks to this guy in the purple suit, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for work. I heard you help out veterans." And the guy in the purple suit's like, what's the guy in the purple suit's name? Do you remember?
Yeah, that is Mr. Itchy.
Mr. Itchy. Okay. So Mr. Itchy's like I only hire veterans who I know, and I don't know you, so get the fuck out of here. And then like two goons come up behind him and they like hold Patton down and like, let's see who you really are, because you don't smell like you're telling the truth or whatever. And then he pulls out his wallet and he sees, because he says like his name is something else, not Pat Patton. He says his name is James Flynn when he starts off. So then he's like, "Oh, Pat Patton, huh? Yeah, that's right. I hired your brother, didn't I?" And then he's like, "Yeah, and now he went missing, so you wouldn't know where he is, would you?" And basically, Pat Patton wants to talk to the boss and get to the bottom of like where his brother's gone. And Mr. Itchy's like, "Nah, I ain't gonna let you talk to the boss." And then we see the boss come out, and the boss is, at least at this job site, is this guy with a very wrinkly face. I had heard from people who are into the older comics that the dumbing down or more realistic versions of the characters made it hard to tell exactly who it was supposed to be. So like, because Prune Face is so iconic in the original, you know, strips, and is obviously like supposed to be like that as a prune, then like when you dumb that down to like realistic, where it's just like, oh, he's got a scarred face, you're kind of like, who is this exactly? Is this prune face or is it someone else? But as not someone who hasn't read any of those, I didn't know who it was, but I was also like, okay, dude's called prune face for a reason. I see why, but I heard people that were fans of the old stuff were like, I couldn't tell because you didn't do it enough. You didn't do the caricature enough, but that was the only like thing I heard about this that like people didn't like. They wanted it more fake, or not fake, but more like the original comic. Literally they were like, when you go to the boardwalk and you're like, draw us. And then like people draw like the most exaggerated characteristics of your face, gigantic and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like that's what the characters look like in the original dailies, like giant noses or like huge lips or flat heads and all that shit. Tiny eyes, giant faces. It's like ridiculous looking, but it worked for the comic, but at the time, but I guess they were trying to make it a little bit more realistic here, and some people did not appreciate that. But anyway. So Pruneface comes out and says basically he sees Pat sees him and he's like, oh, I should have known it was you. And so, yeah, I think he probably knows his brother's dead if it's Pruneface, I guess. So he doesn't say his name at that time, but later on we find out his name is Pruneface. So then we cut to Dick Tracy, not interrogating, but questioning Mumbles. About everything, and of course no one can understand him. I like this. People just like, they'd be like, yeah, what he said, but they're like, they didn't understand him either. They're just like assuming he agreed or didn't agree or whatever. So yeah, but you can't, I don't know, could you understand what Mumbles was saying after a while?
No whatsoever. Again, you get kind of a word or two, or you can kind of piece together a little bit, but for the most part, no. It was just like, it felt like Donnie from Wild Thornberries. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, yes.
Just lots of sound effects basically, and like rambled things together.
Or like Taz.
Yes.
Yeah. So. So I don't think you're supposed to understand it, but I thought, oh, maybe you can or something, but no, you can't. So as he's being questioned, I guess he is under arrest or he's being interrogated, because it does say he's been there for 24 hours and that's like the limit of the police department for holding someone without evidence. So I guess there you go. Now, I like to imagine he was asking for a lawyer the whole time and no one understood him. And so his rights were being violated because they couldn't understand him. But anyway, the police chief comes in and is like, hey, you know what? We're going to put you in a safe house because, people are trying to kill you. So don't worry about it. So he takes him away. But it's very like, I mean, they weren't really telegraphing it, but did you know the chief was bad by then?
No, because there's like this there, and then he does say like, you be careful who you trust, and like I definitely didn't like.
I assume he wasn't talking about himself, but I mean, right there, I was like, that's weird. I feel like he's probably going to be a bad guy. So, and no spoiler alert, my suspicions were right. So, but then. This was a cool thing. I don't know if I doubt this was in the original comic, but we learned that Dick Tracy fought in World War II. And so he has like PTSD, and he will wake up from like dreams about like blowing up Nazis and shit. And then they get like mixed up with like the violence that he sees on the streets every day. No, it's not really touched on in this comic other than showing it happen. But like, I really hope they do go into his PTSD stuff in this series. How'd you feel about that stuff?
I really like that. I was going to say that's not something I remembered anything of, as far as like being part of the character before. I didn't remember.
It's definitely not in the movie or anything. So
yeah, I didn't remember anything like related to World War II. So I thought that was really cool. It was like definitely gives him an extra level of depth.
I will also say I believe that when did Dick Tracy start with the comic, like the actual dailies?
I want to say it was 30 something as well. Like
okay, so it's before
40.
World War II. So if he did fight in anything, it would have been World War One, probably in the comic, the original comic. And I'm almost 100% it's World War II they're talking about, because the Germans are wearing their, like Nazi gear. So it's got to be that. So, yeah, so he's like waking up from like crazy dreams of like PTSD, stuff. And then we cut to Pat, who is still going after Pruneface. He's like, you know what? I'm not giving up on finding out what happened to my brother. And in fact, once I find out, I'm probably going to like beat the fuck out of you or kill you or whoever did it. So he goes to like the restaurant that Pruneface is eating at, and he confronts him at the table. And I was actually surprised Pruneface didn't kill him here, but I guess it is public. So Pruneface just has the restaurant call police, and they remove him. They remove Pat from the restaurant. But I think that scene was here purely to get Dick Tracy and him to meet, because it turns out Dick Tracy and Pat were old war buddies. And when Dick Tracy sees him at the precinct, after having been arrested for, I guess, disturbing the peace or something at the restaurant or trespassing, Dick Tracy's like, oh, like, you want to know what happened? Why? And he's like, oh, because my brother died. And I think it has something to do with the Green Eye case that you're working. And because it's all like the same people. And so basically Tracy's like, fine, we'll work together. You just I'll like, basically he deputizes him. He doesn't actually deputize him, but for all intents and purposes, he's like, you're with me, here's a gun. And like,
yeah, it sure seemed like it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you can deputize people at this time. You can't do that now, right? Maybe a marshal could do that.
I was like, I think the marshals can't. I mean, they deputized some people recently.
I think the marshals can, but I don't think like a regular cop can be like, you are now sworn in as a deputy. Maybe the sheriff, but not like the straight up just detective of homicide, cases or whatever. One of the 12 or guys or whatever, like I don't think that's how it works. But either way, it's unofficial, I think, in this anyway. He doesn't give him a badge or anything. So now they're working together to like solve this case. Pat for his brother, Tracy for, to actually solve the case with the two guys who died at the beginning. So then we cut to Mumbles, who's being brought to the safe house in quotation marks. And it doesn't look too safe. I'll say that. Like immediately I was like, well, he's going to die, because they're bringing him to like some like what looks like a dump, like a garbage dump. And they're like, yeah, you just stay in this shack for safety. And then like the two cops that are guarding him, which don't look like cops, maybe they're even just like guys that were hired. I don't know. One of them looks like a homeless dude or like a rough looking dude. And the other guy is wearing a suit. So maybe one of the guys is like undercover or something. I don't know. But basically they're dirty cops. And they're like, the one in the suit's like, wait, why are we leaving him alone, Pechota? And Pechota's like, cause I think we need to leave this guy and get a drink somewhere. Wink, wink. Look at my eye. I'm winking. And, the new guy's like, I guess so. I guess I could use a drink. And as they're walking out, fucking Flat Top is walking in with a gun, with a Tommy gun. So it's like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about what's going to happen here. And as they walk away, like the young kid's like, yeah, I'll take a nice stiff drink. And then like, I guess maybe he doesn't want to die either, potentially, but it doesn't seem like he's fighting too hard about this. And then, Mumbles gets blown away by Flat Top. And I got to say, like, they did a really good job of making Flat Top, like, look like he's really enjoying the murder, Oh, yeah.
Every time he fires his gun, he has, like, the craziest expression on his face, and I love it.
Yeah. It's almost like I could totally see, Filthy Angels or whatever that I got my Tommy gun right here. Ah,
Yeah.
ha, 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 ha. Like,
Keep the change. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, from what was that, Home Alone, right? Like
Home
the
Alone. Yeah.
Angels with Filthy Souls or whatever that movie is. Yeah, like that's totally, he could be saying the lines from that movie as he's shooting up the person in that. So, yeah. But one thing I did like about this comic, or that I did like, was that every issue kind of had the same flow. It was like, start off with a mystery. The mystery like gets further like looked into by Dick Tracy and stuff, and then a scene of violence happens, and then we get a little piece, solved, or a little piece that furthers, the main character's thing, and the next issue. Like, so I liked the flow of each issue a lot. I think they did a really good job of making each issue interesting instead of doing like some writers. I will say it is common for nowadays where people don't do the cliffhanger at the end of each issue. They just like let the story grow, like if it was all one issue for 120 issue or 120 pages, So like I liked that they did the cliffhanger at the end of each issue of this story.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, because like, and as much as I love like Ed Brubaker and stuff, like a lot of his comics don't have that like punch at the end of each issue that you would normally get with some older comics, because it's like, well, I'm writing it for the trade, and the trade will have a satisfying ending, but each issue is just like furthering the story, but doesn't really give you like a dun dun dun, come back next week for, and I kind of think that this does a really good job of keeping that, and that fits the old timiness of this comic. So, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because this is kind of like whenever Flat Top shows up, it's towards the end. It like puts a damper on whatever Dick Tracy's doing, and what he's doing right now is he's talking to Tess and Pat, and they're trying to figure out, I guess, who Mumbles was working for and why someone want to kill him. And it turns out he's working for some guy named Lips Manless. Is Lips the guy that Al Pacino played?
I don't remember. I said, it's been a while for that, but I will say like I forgot. Each time there was a new character introduced, I was like, oh my gosh, every person in this book has a like one of those ridiculous.
We got Itchy, we got Lips, we got Prune Face,
got Mumbles, Flat Top.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it though. I thought it was fun, But basically they say like, Lips Manless is he's the big dog in the city, and someone is coming after him. And that someone is the guy that we saw at the end of the last issue, who we don't really know who he is until we cut to his house. And this guy, what's his name?
Yeah, it's Big Boy. That's the one we haven't named yet. That's who Al Pacino was. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Big Boy is coming to take over the town, and so he's like throwing wrenches in. And I think initially he is involved in the building of the whole wharf or whatever area that's like now being turned into houses that like Pat's brother was, a construction worker at. And so like the plan is, and I'll kind of like fill this in. Maybe I got some of it wrong too. So if I do, let me know, John, if you understood something different. There was a little bit of confusion at the end for me about exactly how everything tied together. But what I got is Big Boy wants to take over. He has slowly been getting people in his pocket in the town, like the board of directors of the city and stuff like that, so that he can build up this area of the town that was traditionally off limits because it was like a park and stuff for kids to play in and people to go to and look at the ocean, I guess. But he's like, what if I made it condos, and they're like, okay, if you line our pockets, we will let you do that. So that's what he's doing. But that also means he's getting dirt on all these people and like leverage over them. And they're all important people. And that's going to lead him to be like, now I have enough people in my pocket so that I can go to war and take over Lips's, territory, because no one will be able to like convict me, or the police will be on my side and stuff, because I have dirty cops helping me. I have judges helping me. I have, district attorneys and stuff helping me. So he's getting power in different ways and going kind of like behind Lips's back, trying to like take over. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much exactly how I thought it. It's like he's been playing the long game while Lips has been doing his, Lips is like the main head gangster guy in town, and he's been playing in the background and playing the long game, not only getting ready to take over his stuff, but also like basically either get dirt or pay off people. So
yeah. Okay, so now we start issue 3 with a raid that Dick Tracy has gone on his own. He has not got a warrant for the warehouse at the wharf or whatever, where they're building all these houses. And we see a bunch of guys working at night. We got Itchy managing, like always, telling people to move boxes a lot. And he's like, you got to move stuff faster. We got to get all this stuff out of here by tonight. And Dick Tracy just breaks through the door with his car, comes out with Pat and Tess. Or is Tess there or no? It's just Pat.
Yeah.
Is Tess?
No,
okay.
Tess is there.
Tess is there. Okay. Yeah, you're right. She's in the back seat. Okay. So, so they break in because they're like, I guess, she'd get the scoop to the presses. And he's like, we're breaking in here. There's drugs here because Pat has told them, I've seen him been moving drugs in and out of here every night that I've staked out the place. So you're definitely going to find drugs in these boxes. So Dick Tracy comes in there. He calls cops too. They come. They toss the place. There is no drugs. It is all building materials. And he's like, fuck. And then as they realize this is, this was a legit business tonight, I guess. They didn't have reason to be here, and they're fucked because, they warrantless search this place. And, that's a no-no. That's a big no-no, I would think, for Dick Tracy being a cop. But we see 2 cars pull up with guys with Tommy guns. They start blasting, and a bunch of the police officers get shot up, and a couple of the hoods and stuff too get shot up. So there's deaths now because of what Dick Tracy did. And as the guys drive away, they say, Itchy, tell your boss that Lips heard him loud and clear. If he wants war, that's what he'll get. So this is where I was confused. Oh, no. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Itchy works for Big Boy because he's building the houses on the wharf. Okay. Lips just said, if he wants war, I'll give him war. So, okay. So, yeah, this lines up. My bad. Some of this was confusing for some part. I can't remember why I thought it was confusing, but I was like, wait, who works for who now?
Yeah, it was mainly because there were so many characters, and again, they all have a fun name. So you're like, wait a minute, who does Lippy the whatever work for? Who does?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Tess is not there because they tell Tess, hey, go to the safe house where Mumbles is and get him so that we can, have him for evidence against these guys too. So that
I missed that she got out of the car.
Yeah, she got out of the car right before they did the bust. So not only is Dick Tracy in shit right now because he did this bust that went bad and people got shot, including cops, and killed, I'm assuming, because it was pretty bloody. We see Tess go to where Mumbles was supposed to be in the safe house, and he's still in there, but of course he is dead. He's been shot by Flat Top's Tommy gun. And and this must be right after Flat Top did that because she's looking at him. She's like, oh my God, you were supposed to be under protection. Where are the police? And then we see the 2 cops that went to go get a drink come back, and she runs away and she's able to escape. But she comes and tells Dick Tracy, who's in big trouble at the station, hey, Mumbles is dead. The police got to him. And I thought I don't know if this was just because Dick Tracy he believes too much in the right of the law, or that his fellow cops wouldn't be bad. My mind's always well, yeah, you're good, but other cops are obviously bad. Some of them are, right? So are on the take and stuff. It's like Serpico. I assume the main character is not bad, but who knows who's on the take? But apparently Dick Tracy is no, every cop is an upstanding citizen and would never do anything wrong. Because when the idea of how could they have known where Mumbles was? The only police know. I'm like, and then the next logical step would be the police. Someone in the police did it, right?
That's their dick.
But he doesn't. It's hard for him to believe that. He's like, I
I can't believe someone would do that.
Yeah. I'm not even going to like put a thought into that. You know, that's so disgraceful. He doesn't say that, but that's kind of like the attitude he's got towards it. And then as they're talking, you know, he gets called out by the police chief, who's like, what the fuck were you thinking? You went in there. Why didn't you take my advice? This is a robbery thing. Why are you investigating those deaths still? Just let the robbery have it. Focus on that. And you know, you just take a chill pill. Why don't you go hang out with your new writer friend? She's pretty attractive. and he's basically like, this is where you're like, oh, he's obviously bad. You know, he's the bad guy, you know, or so, in some way. He's a dirty cop. The police chief is.
Yeah. This is about where I really started. I don't think I suspected him really until this, because he's like, yeah, go hang out with that pretty girl. And then he was also like, yeah, be careful who you trust. And I was like, only people who you can't trust say that.
Say that, yeah. This is also where Dick Tracy starts thinking, like, you can see the wheels spinning. Like, he doesn't want to believe it. He knows the chief. He's friendly with the chief. He eats eggs with the chief. You know. Certainly it can't be the chief, but you could see like in the back of his mind. And that was one thing I thought the drawing was really good. Like the art was really good in this. You could definitely see like it wasn't in words. You could see the machines turn, the cogs turning in Tracy's eyes, you know, like he's thinking about this and he will come to the right conclusion eventually. And that was transferred into the art. That was like, you know, definitely, what word am I thinking of? That was conveyed through the art for sure, which is something hard to do. I think, you know, giving people the eyes that you can like understand what they're thinking is a hard thing to draw. So good on the artist for that. But yeah, so then of course, you know, Tracy and everybody kind of gets in him and Tess and Pat kind of get in a fight. And as they leave, you know, Tracy's like, wait. We're a team. We need to act like a team. Like, we need to be smarter than them. So, like, we need to pay Lips Manless a visit. And so that's kind of like we leave them and we cut to a couple who's clearing out. Now, this is a part I got confused by. There's a guy named Shoulders and a woman named, what's her name? Greta or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, she's the only one I didn't write down.
No, you're fine. Marge. Her name is Marge. So Shoulders and Marge are waiting for someone, and I can't remember who they worked for. He works for Lips. Shoulders works for Lips. Marge is like, I don't know what she does, but she also does something for them. But it seems like they're a couple, like Shoulders and Marge are a couple. But as Shoulders opens the door, he's like, oh, hey, there's a guy standing there. And he's like, oh, hey, Junkie, what's going on? And then Junkie is like dead, immediately falls down dead, like he was already shot or killed. And like he just made it to the door barely and then died at their doorstep. And then it turns out that's, or is that how you read it? Or was Flat Top standing behind him, like holding him up?
I read it as like flat, like basically he was, I guess, maybe right directly behind him, either like.
But was he already shot or not? That's the question.
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I guess he was right behind him, but you know, Junkie was trying to get knocking on their door or whatever, and or about to get to their door when they opened it and saw him dying. And so Flat Top looks at them and says, hey, Shoulders, hey, Marge, good to see you. And then he like opens fire and murders them. I wasn't really sure because I thought later on, and this is where I got confused later on, I thought Shoulders was in the comic later on. There was a part where I thought Shoulders was talking to someone. We'll point it out later when I see it. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. But then we start the next issue. Or no, we cut to the end of that issue. We start the next issue. And we cut to Big Boy, and he's looking at the war from the beach, and we see Itchy run up and be like, hey, boss, you like it? Looking good, you know? And he's like, why'd you call me here, boss? And he's like, If you want something, you got to go get it directly. Now go get me Lips Manless. So he tells Itchy to go get the main big boss for the underground there. Then we cut to Tess, and she's writing her article about all the violence that's been happening. I liked this part a lot, where you get to see like a flashback, and she kind of puts everything together succinctly for anybody who might not be following along totally. Yeah. So then we cut to people gambling in a house, in the basement of a house, it looks like. It's kind of like they're hiding out from Flat Top because they hear, people are coming up after Lips's guys. So these are all Lips's guys, I think, right? Yeah. And so, but as they're playing, someone breaks down the door, and before they can draw their guns and stuff, we see it's Dick Tracy and Pat, and they're there, and they begin asking questions. And basically it comes clear that like Dick Tracy is going to use them as baits, because they can't really go out, because people saw Dick Tracy go into this back area. So like their boss Lips will know that they talked, or will think that they talked to Dick Tracy if they're not dead or in jail. And so he's like, either we're going to leave and you're going to get in trouble with your boss, or you tell us something and we, let you, we're like, I don't know, pretend that you beat us up or some shit. I don't know. But as they're talking, Dick Tracy just happens to notice someone outside leave a package out the window, because they're in a basement. So they see someone leave a package right at the like window line of the ground, and it's a fucking bomb. Dick Tracy runs out, grabs it. It's dynamite with a fucking clock on it. And the only thing in this comic that I was like, that should not be that, is this timer. This timer looks digital to me. It's 1947. There's no time on it, I will say. At least there is what looks like a screen, though.
That's funny you said that, because when I noticed it too, I was like, oh, weird. It doesn't have because of the time frame it is. I also expected it to have like a little tiny alarm clock on it, basically, like the old kind with the two bells.
Exactly. That's what it should.
So this does, again, you're right. It doesn't have any numbers on it like it's showing, but it definitely looks like a digital style screen. Yeah.
Now, there's no numbers, so it might not be a screen. It might just be a clock with no face on it or something, but it is ticking. So there's mechanisms working inside of it. But Dick Tracy's able to throw it away. And also every time like he sees violence or kind of things like this explosion happens, Dick Tracy is having flashbacks to the war. And that's why I really liked that, because it really broke it up, and you're like, oh, he's going through something, throughout this whole thing. But he can't really talk about it or anything. He's got to kind of put a face on and just kind of push that shit down. And I was like, that's a really powerful, fucked up thing he's doing right now, but they're not drawing attention to it other than it's just happening on the page, but he's not talking about it, and it's not addressed by anybody, even himself, but us as the reader are seeing it. So I really liked that stuff in it. But anyway, so the explosion happens, and as he's remembering a church blowing up in, wherever, France or somewhere where he was fighting in World War II, we see Prune Face stick his head out of the car with a Tommy gun, and he starts shooting at them. And so, now Dick Tracy's like, okay, I know who that is. It's Prune Face. Now we're getting somewhere. And so he's like, we gotta start by getting Prune Face. Then we cut to downtown, and we see Tess going into an office. Is this one of Prune Face's offices? Or whose office is this? I want to say it's Big Head or Big Man. Big Boy, sorry.
Big Boy. It's got to be, because she finds the stuff about her dad being in there.
Yeah, so I think this is an office that Big Boy runs. That's because his big thing is everything's on the up and up. I've filed the paperwork, so he's got to have file cabinets with paperwork in it, and so this reminded me a lot of The Wire in season 3, when if you remember, Stringer Bell, or have you seen The Wire? I assume you have. Have you not seen The Wire?
I have never seen The Wire.
Oh my fucking God. John, what have you been doing for the last 20 years?
That's literally everybody's like, you have to see The Wire, and then I just never. That's the one I never got back around to because other things came out, and they were like, no, you have to watch this.
After this, whatever you're doing, you're not doing that. You and your lovely wife are going to turn The Wire on, and
we're watching Severance now because we were told we have to watch Severance.
Fuck that show. The Wire's where it's at. I mean, Wire is one of the best shows of all time. So. Yeah. Anyway, in that show, there is a season where like one of the main bad guys is like, he's basically doing this. He's like buying land and building developments, but it's all on the up and up. And he's doing like the political donations and stuff, which is what everybody does. So he's not like just the weird criminal doing it. It's like, that's how everybody gets shit built in, Baltimore. So very similar. This guy is, Big Boy is going around doing what everybody does to get buildings built and stuff and paying off politicians and whatnot. So he's got records of all this shit. And basically, Tess is able to, she says like, oh, I'm working for Big Boy or whatever. And like, or I'm working for a guy who owes Big Boy money. Here's a check. And the lady's like, we don't take checks. We're cash only. She's like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess I could tell Jimmy downstairs or whatever. And she's like, oh no, I'll go down there and yell at him. You wait here. And so I bought this. Like I was on board with this. This was a little bit convenient to me. But it worked. It was like, okay, like kind of makes sense that she would go down and yell at him. Cause like they write her that like the lady that works there is like, God damn these fucking people, these clowns. I'm going to go give Jimmy some what for. And so that gives Tess a second, like to just be in the office by herself. And that's when she starts looking up, breaking into file cabinets, looking up everything about everything she sees. Slumlords getting bought out by Big Boy, politicians getting paid off, people on city council, all that stuff. And
who does she find?
Yeah, she finds her dad. But it turns out he was not, wasn't he like not as bad as as we thought? Because at the beginning they're like, he's got a guilty conscience, but
yeah, because he didn't want to play ball.
Yeah, so like I was like, what does he have a guilty conscience about? Because in the first page they say like he's got a guilty conscience. I'm like, was he guilty just because in general people are paying off city people? He shouldn't have a guilty conscience for that, but maybe he was that good of a guy. He's like, I feel guilty for other people's guilt.
I work in the same place where other people have taken money, so therefore I feel guilty.
Exactly, yeah. So she's able to think on her feet after she gets all that info and paperwork, and she like, shoves it in her purse or whatever, and then jumps out the window. Hopefully they're on not the second floor or third floor.
That was my thought too. When I saw her go out the window, I was like, I assume this is an area where they have like the fire escapes right out the window because I don't know what she's doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was only a 2-story building. In that case, it would only be like a 10 or 15 foot drop, but still not a fun drop in heels, I'll say. Yeah. So she got all that info, and then now we follow Dick Tracy and Pat going to Lips's house, right? Or who's this guy that she goes to, or that they go to?
Itchy. This is Itchy.
Oh, this is Itchy. Okay. He's just not in his purple suit, so I didn't recognize him. So yeah, Itchy, who is hitting on a lady that does not want to be in a room with him. He's like, come on, baby. There's no need to be like that. And then like, she's like, get off me, creep. And then he's like, oh, excuse my sexual assault real quick. I need to answer the door. And
you stay right there, Toots. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll be right back to resume my assault. And so Dick Tracy's there with Pat's, and like Itchy's like, I know you. You're that cop. You can't do nothing to me. And he's like, yeah. Well, Pat here ain't a cop. And then Pat's like, let me show you what I can do. And he beats the fuck out. I thought these scenes where Pat's punching Itchy looked fantastic. Like just the artwork where you really feel the hits, in the stomach.
Oh yeah.
It's like fantastic. And he like hangs him out of a window and is like, you gonna tell me? And she's like, yeah, I'll tell you. So basically they get the whole breakdown of like what Big Boy's trying to do. Now he does say like, go to this area. You will find Big Boy and all his guys or whatever, and bust it up. So Dick Tracy goes here, and it turns out it's a trap. I mean, he thinks it's a trap, I think. But I guess he figures he could take everybody on. So he goes there. He finds Prune Face and Flat Top and Big Boy. They're all in this. I don't know if it's a house. I guess it's a house. And they have a big shootout. And then the problem is that Dick Tracy broke in there once again without a warrant. And Pat's there, who's not a cop. And he's not legally deputized or anything. And this is Big Boy's house. So technically Dick Tracy is trespassing and all this stuff. So the cops show up, they arrest Pat and Dick Tracy. Because, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm all above board, fellas. You can check all the paperwork. It's stamped. Like Big Boy he's doing it by the book, which is great. Like, it's kind of like, it's like diplomatic immunity, for like 70s movies or something.
I really enjoyed the character. Very Kingpin-esque. Very much like
where he's like running for mayor and shit. He's like, you can't touch him. He's running for mayor.
Yeah, he's like, of course I'm doing everything right. Like, what are you talking about? You can't find nothing on me.
Yeah, I thought this was like a good buildup of this bad guy. Like, he's not just coming at you with guns and stuff, because that's easy to fight. It's harder to fight it when he's in, at least on the outside, doing everything clean. And you can't, by the law, like, just go fuck him up or whatever. So, but then we see the chief reprimanding Dick Tracy, and he's like, what were you thinking? How could you do that? And Dick Tracy's like, I thought I was, I'm protecting justice. And the chief is like, you aren't justice. That's just like your morals, your principles. That's not justice. And he's like, you know what? You don't have any morals. Like, he basically calls him out. He basically says, he doesn't say it straight out though. I kind of wish he was like, you're fucking dirty, chief, but he doesn't like straight up say it. He just says like, some of us have morals, chief, or whatever. And it's like, what do you mean by that? Take him away. So he doesn't quite say it flatly, but like, I kind of wish he would. He does later on, I think, though. He says something. But then we see Pat and Dick Tracy are being transported in a police truck, and they realize, I guess Dick Tracy has great sense of direction, because he's like, we're going north, not south. Like, so he knows they're taking him to the wrong place, which is like, oh, we're going to die, because these are dirty cops. And like, obviously now my chief is dirty, and I know it now. And so they're trying to, they're kind of freaking out. Pat's freaking out, like, how do we get out of here? And then they hear like a car revving up, and they're like, what's that? And then we cut to the outside, and we see a red truck like hit the side of the van, or the like armored car that the police have. And it flips the police van. And I was like, luckily nothing happens to Dick Tracy or Pat in that accident, as it flipped over a bunch of times.
Yeah, as they're in the back of this van, and they have no seatbelt on. They're just inside a big metal box, basically.
Yeah, so they're just tumbling around. But it was Tess driving the car, it turns out. So she freed them. But then as they're like, well, we should definitely get back in the truck, because police don't like it when you topple their vehicles over. And then we see a bunch of other police coming down the street towards them. And this is like Fast and the Furious style. She's just like hitting people off the road and stuff. Like, but these are police cars that they're hitting. And then they finally get to the last cop, and it turns out it's like this female cop. I think she was in the thing earlier. She was in like the first issue, I think.
Maybe she was one of the ones at the first scene.
Yeah, she was kind of shown to be maybe that, or somewhere around there. And she was shown to be like a good cop. So we assume she's not dirty, because Dick Tracy gets out. He's like, I know you. Like, you know who I am. I'm telling you, there are dirty cops. We're not them. Please let us go. You can trust me. You know who I am. I'm not a bad guy. And she believes him and lets him get away. Then we cut to the police chief, who's sitting up in bed. And I guess he's been waiting there since he heard that Dick Tracy escaped. And so we see Dick Tracy appear from the shadows in his room and say, why'd you do it, chief? And then we get the breakdown. Where basically Big Boy, but basically, if you think about it, the chief is actually the big bad here because he let Big Boy get the power because he was like, what I'll do is I'll like help out this lower level guy, Big Boy, until he's powerful enough to kill Lips and take out Lips. And then I'll take out both of them all in one swoop, and I'll be like the best chief of all time.
Yeah, he'll be the real hero.
Yeah. And so Dick Tracy's like, that's what happened? Like, how could you, you know? And then like we also cut to... He was
playing the long game.
Yeah, he was playing the long game. And we also cut to like the Lips and his family. They're like about to leave. I guess they're running away is what they say, right?
Yeah, they're like getting out of town.
Yeah, because they're in fear for their lives from Big Boy. And but as they're about to board the train, we see Itchy and Flat Top and Prune Face, and they got Tommy guns, and they get on the train ramp and they begin shooting people. But they don't kill everybody because Dick Tracy shows up, you know, because he's already talked to the chief, got the whole confession. Pat shows up with him, and they have a big shootout with Prune Face and Flat Top and Itchy, and luckily Dick Tracy does not hit any of them in, you know, deadly spots, all shoulder shots. They're just going to prison, you know, except Prune Face, who he doesn't get killed, but Pat is like, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you for what you did to my brother, and proceeds to beat the shit out of Prune Face with the butt of his gun. And Dick Tracy's like, okay, stop before you kill him with the last hit. But he lets him beat the fuck out of him, though, so that was fun. Yeah, that was a good time. And then we cut to... Is it Big... Who's this? Is this Big Boy that we're... Yeah, this is Big Boy. Big Boy's house.
And the police chief.
Yeah, and the police chief. The police is... You know, police chief's, I guess, trying to, like, redeem himself. Maybe even, like, salvage it, like... Maybe people don't know everything yet except Dick Tracy, so he could, like, if he gets Big Boy, Lips has been taken down, so if he gets Big Boy, then he'll still look like the hero or something. But as he pulls a gun on Big Boy, we see Dick Tracy come out of the woods and say, like, put your gun down, this ain't gonna end like that. And then I thought this was interesting, because Dick Tracy can't actually do anything here. And this is like a common thing in cop shows where like the police have no legal right to arrest him yet. They don't have any evidence for stuff. But like Dick Tracy gets to like throw him against the house and be like, I'm going to fucking get you. I'll be watching you. And like, you know, you just better watch yourself because I know you're the ones who like kill all those people and stuff. So now Big Boy is like pretty much the syndicate in town. Like he's the main bad guy.
Yeah, it's still all worked out in Big Boy's favor.
Exactly. Big Boy, yeah, the chief fucked himself and the town because now Big Boy is out, or Big Boy's in, Lips is out, and they don't have any evidence against Big Boy to really do anything. So yeah, and that's kind of where we leave it with, you know, Dick Tracy being, you know, back instated as a detective because he got in trouble before, but now it's like, no, the chief was dirty. So I guess he got okay.
Yeah, he's not the chief, but he's back on the scene now.
He's back on the squad. And then also Pat, his buddy from the war, has joined him as a actual police officer. So now they're a partnership, and that is the end of Dick Tracy, Volume 1. So John, what did you think? What would you give it?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really fun, very, you know, gumshoe, very good, like lots of twists and turns, you know, not quite straightforward. And again, I didn't quite suspect the police chief until like halfway through. So like there were some really good hidden things in there. I liked Pat. I didn't remember that as a character. I didn't remember him having again, this may have not been in the original, you know, especially since he's a war buddy technically in this.
I believe he was. I don't know if he was a war friend, but I think Pat was, because they say like Pat's back too, like in some of the stuff I read. So I'm like, he must have been a character.
Well, again, I guess I'm not, just don't remember as much So it was nice to have a dynamic of I specifically like even though Dick Tracy did tons of illegal shit, it was still fun to have the moments of like, well, I can't do anything because I'm a police officer, but Pat here.
Okay. I will say like Dick Tracy does stuff that's illegal, but he does it where like the law is wrong and he's doing like the moral thing or whatever. So he's still like in the right in the reader's eyes, you know?
Sure, I'm not saying Dick Tracy is a bad cop because I'm just saying like he does things to where like if that became evidence, like well he got it in a bad way, so it wouldn't be able to stick. You know, if a cop breaks in somewhere without a warrant and finds something illegal, you can't use that as evidence. So he needs, you know, he would have to something else would have to occur. But anyway, I specifically like the dynamic of having Pat there to like do the extra dirty stuff, like you know, rough people up for information so it wasn't, you know, Dick Tracy's hands are clean.
Yeah, then Tracy could just like look away and be like, I didn't see him assault you.
Yeah, it's like the old like you bring you bring a doctor to your duel, but then he turns around, so he has plausible deniability, whatever. So yeah, it was fun, and again, the art is really cool in this. Anytime it's like set in the rain or kind of like in the shadows, like it's always really cool to have the characters like kind of creeping out from that. All the bad guys were for the most part very even though they weren't quite as exaggerated as the original characters, or they still are all very
they were memorable, they were hyperbolic. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, like they're all memorable, they're all kind of a little more real world, but still very much like, oh yeah, like these are characters. And yeah, everything was a lot of fun. All the action was really great. I love that all the bad guys were always using Tommy guns, and I guess that's, you know, they're not that accurate, but because they can spray and kill a bunch of people, but then anytime it came to like, you know, the main people, like they never could hit them. And then you know, Dick Tracy you know, gets the non-lethal shots on them, so it's just fun. But yeah, so overall I really liked it. I would give it an 8.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 7. I think it's a solid first story. There's so much more I want to know, so like I'm definitely gonna read further volumes. I think this was like a good first story to get your feet wet with this world. But then they left so much like not fully done. Obviously, this stuff with Big Boy is there to be, you know, completed later. And then same with like his PTSD and the relationship with him and Tess, and what's Pat and his, you know, relationship doing now because he's a cop. So like I'm excited to see where it goes. It was a pretty strong outing though for a first volume of something, especially something that's like so, you know, it's so known but unknown, you know, like all of us know the name Dick Tracy, but none of us have read any of the comics or whatever, you know? So like, it could have been like the movie where it's like, it's got the aesthetic right, but just, I don't care about the story at all, you know? I think the story was very well written in this, and each issue specifically, I really liked the flow of. It was very well done and very kind of reminiscent of those old timey comics where it was like, each issue had to end on a cliffhanger or end with a bang so that you wanted to pick up the next issue. And I think they did a really good job with that. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 7. You're going to give it an 8. And then we got a poll coming out. But before we do that, I wanted to thank the patrons who will get to vote on that poll. Thank you, Hoku, Otaku, Mike, Christian, Matthew, Joseph, Kalia, Kevin, James, Craig, and our newest patron, Leroy. You guys are awesome. Just want to say thank you, and you help us keep the lights on and pay for this. So, yeah, we're gonna be doing the voted on episode the second, or was it the third week of this month, I guess. So, John, what are they voting on?
So we've got our old-timey comics oldies but goodies. We've got The Shadow, 1941, Hitler's Astrologist, The Rocketeer, The Great Race, and then The Lord of the Jungle, a.k.a. Tarzan.
Yeah, and most of those are newer comics that have come out, like Lord of the Jungle and The Great Race, The Rocketeer. Those are newer ones that came out, but I really liked The Rocketeer one. I actually pick up like in singles, and that one's really good. And then Tarzan, the Lord of the Jungle one, looked really interesting, really good art, and written by Roy Thomas, I think. Someone that I was like, oh, that's cool. They got some older guy to write it, but like he has the feel of it, you know. And then The Shadow is an older one, and I believe that one's written by like Howard Chaykin or something. So I was like, we must do this one. So
yeah. And I will say there was one we only have 3 this one because we were trying really hard to find, but we could not find a collection of the Phantom. That was one that we did want to try to, because I've never read any Phantom, and I don't remember, I don't think you had either, right?
No, I've never read the Phantom. It is a strip, so there is some kind of story arc in it, but I don't know where we would, like, if we were able to find it and check it out, where we would stop or anything, you know? So
yeah, so we got to do some research on that. So we'll come back to him. I want to read it, and I think Matt seemed pretty interested in it as well, because we both love that. From our fond memories of it, we were talking about Billy Zane being hell yeah. So I'd like to think that they obviously probably pulled that character because the comic was cool too. So we'll get back to him. But that's the poll this month. If you want to vote on that poll, patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word.
Oh yeah, everybody hold John to this. John has said he will contribute one comic review blog a month starting out in March, and I'm holding him to this, and everybody else is too.
So now we'll have the patrons involved who, you all can hold me accountable. We just had a lot of stuff going on over the years, and over the years. I you know what it is? A really busy 5 years. You know what it is? I started to try to give an excuse, and then realize, we've been doing this for 5 years, and it's not lazy. Excuse. It's just that I haven't put in as much as Matt's put into it, and that's going to change.
Yes, it is. I'm going to force Sean to do it. I'm going to waterboard him until he gives me a fucking review of a comic on a blog.
Yeah, we'll start slow with my own review of a comic a month, and then we'll see from there. I talked about doing reviews of comic movies when I go see them, because my wife and we always go to like almost every one of those. So,
I mean, you saw Captain America, right?
Yeah,
write a little blog about it. Put a picture on there.
Yeah, me. Yeah, put a picture of me in a Captain America suit.
There you go.
But the one he wears, so it's super tight on.
Yeah. Like, well, is there any other way to do
it? Just little patches of skin hanging, poking out.
Nice. Anyway, patrons, be sure to hold John to that. Call him out if you haven't seen it by April 1st. Be like, where's our fucking review? Look forward to that and vote on the poll. And if you guys would like to get that exclusive episode every month, you can join Patreon at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.